we work with parents who are divorced or separated and who really are wanting to learn how to co-parent peacefully and to keep your kids out of the middle of that conflict. So at the Kids First Center, we have multiple different classes about co-parenting that are listed on our website. If you're interested, it's thekidsfirstcenter.org. And we also have some free webinar series as well as a professional institute for therapists, for mental health professionals, for attorneys who work with families who are going through divorce or separation as well. I'm here today to answer questions in the chat. We we won't be answering any like legal related questions today, but we do have a resource for you that Brittany will talk about at the end if you do have those legal questions. But otherwise, I hope that you enjoy today as much as possible and get as much out of it as you can. So thank you to Town and Country again for doing this.
Thanks, Allie. Welcome, everybody. My name is Nicole Lemieux, and I have been at the credit union for a very long time, almost 16 years, and started my career as a branch manager loan officer, working with people in the community. I managed the Forest Avenue location in Portland and helped people with all sorts of debt related loans, car loans, consumer loans, and working with account related services as well. And then my most recent position in the last 2 years, I switched over and now I'm a mortgage loan officer, working with people purchasing their first home, going through divorce and trying to figure out who should buy the home, should we sell the home, and that's kind of my new role at the credit union now.
And I am Brittany Eaton. I am the collections manager here at Town and Country. I've been with Town and Country for 13 years and doing the collections portion for about 11 of that. I started as a teller in our Scarborough branch and really enjoy helping people, helping them with their finances, budgeting, and was drawn to collections because that's what we do. We help people through financial hardships. I am also on the Kids First board. I've been on the board for about 2.5 years now, and I'm the current secretary. So I'm really excited to do this today in conjunction with Kids First and give you some information about, like what Nicole had mentioned, some just dealing with separation and divorce and finances, and hopefully give you some tips and answer any questions that anyone may have. So we'll get started here. Just a little bit about Town and Country. So we've been helping people get through financial hurdles since 1953. We currently have about 40,000 members, and we serve in Cumberland and York County. And we also have 6 branches located in Portland, South Portland, Scarborough, and Saco. So jumping right in. So financial impact concerns of separation or divorce. So there can be a really big financial impact when navigating through separation and divorce, or really any financial hardship that you may go through. So on the screen, you're going to look at these. There's some major things that when we're working with members, Nicole and I, that we see come up. Maybe you haven't even thought about these, maybe you're right in the middle of it, but just some things we want you to think about that can really impact you when going through separation and divorce. So when working with members, the first thing I think many think of is legal, the bills that come along with that, the attorney bills. That's a lot. And that is true. That can be a big financial impact, and that is important to think about. But also the financial impact of divorce extends really beyond that. So thinking about some things that I see a lot in my department is reduced income. You're going from a 2-income household possibly to then a 1. So what does that look like for you? What can you do to kind of help you get through that is something that we talk to a lot of members about, and just working with them, budgeting, seeing what can we do to help you, because that can be a big difference to your monthly budget. Added debt. So that could be maybe you have to move. You have to move out into a new home. You have to move into an apartment. So are you having to take out a small loan or use credit cards to put a down payment, a security deposit on an apartment? Or something I talked to a member about, they had to refurnish a new home. They started brand new. They had to add debt to get that stuff to start fresh. So thinking about that, or having to use your savings is another big financial impact with this when you're going through divorce, to pay for filing fees, attorney bills. If you have children, dealing with that aspect, child support, or added costs for maybe extra care because you're having to meet with your attorney, and you've had to drain your savings for that or a dip into it. But this may also have an impact on your credit score. So there are times we've worked with members that they've had joint debts, they've been with their significant other for years, and was under the impression that joint debts were getting paid by one person, and then maybe they just haven't paid attention and they weren't. So now you're noticing you have a big impact to your credit. But on the same side of that, dealing with this and you're getting behind on bills because you've been paying your attorney, you've been just trying to get by, and so you've kind of let some other things go, which then has an impact on your credit score. So I think that if you're experiencing any of these things right now, or maybe you haven't thought of them, but you're getting to that point where you got to sit down and just lay it all out. So we're going to talk about some things to kind of go through bits and pieces so it's not so overwhelming. But if we can try and help you prevent some of that stress or bring some of that down, I think that's one of our goals as a credit union, but also today for you guys sitting on this presentation. So next, we're going to talk about, Nicole, uncoupling your accounts.
Yeah. So to allude to what Brittany was just talking about, I think, the first step when we talk about accounts, checking, savings, investment, retirement, mortgage, any accounts as far as loans go, personal loans, auto loans, credit cards. The first step is to kind of know where you stand, know what you have. And I'm not like super old school, but I kind of am when it comes to things like this. I think it's really important to sort of write down somewhere a list of all of the things that you have currently. List all the checking accounts, list all the savings accounts, list the investment accounts, list the loans, so that when you're trying to figure out, which account am I going to keep? Which account are you going to keep? What money do we have? You really know from the very beginning. It's the same thing with investments or retirement accounts. Sometimes during divorce, a portion of your investments or retirement might go to each other or one of the spouses. And so sort of understanding how much do I have, so that when you get to the point of, potentially a lawyer is involved or the divorce is coming near, what you're up against and what you have for accounts. So that's the starting point. The first step, and when you talk about uncoupling or separating accounts, is just knowing what you have. And then from there, a lot of times what we see is in the middle of a divorce, each person will go open up their own account. And so that's the start of really separating funds, especially if you have a direct deposit from your job or other things that you want to then have in your own account, starting with opening up your own savings and checking and getting those things moved over into your individual names is a good point to start with. And then from there, the investments, a lot of times those are individual as well, but some of them can be also joint. And so trying to figure out how to separate those, whether it's a loan in your own name or you separate them, and open up separate ones with the funds that are being divided. And so that's sort of the starting point, is seeing what you have, and then opening up your own separate account, and then kind of going from there and having your own funds and your own checking to work with. The other big piece is updating personal information. So when you're separating, wills or trusts or power of attorneys, if that's applicable, you want to get all of that updated. And same with beneficiaries. A lot of times we see, somebody open an account with Town and Country 25 years ago, and they put their partner or their spouse as their beneficiary, and they don't even really know that they're still on there. So that's really important to just kind of knowing as well, like, who do I have for beneficiaries on all of my accounts, and then updating them accordingly. The real estate titles, those can get a little bit, they're a little bit more complicated because you have to kind of figure out, which we're going to go into a little bit in more detail in another, as we move along on the presentation. But those, that really depends on what's going to happen with a property if you have one together. Who's going to keep the property? Are we selling it? If you're going to keep the property, then you want to just make sure you have that title or deed updated and it's in just your name. That happens a lot of times with, a refinance anyway, or, if you're buying somebody out, those things happen along that process anyway. And then name change, if you're going to change your name, making sure that that is changed on all of your accounts. And that happens too, believe it or not. People will come in and they'll, tell us their last name and they're not in our system, and it's because they never changed their name on the account. So I think that's where my old school method of like writing everything down comes handy, because then you can just check it off as you do all these little tasks. And then account passwords too. If you're sharing an account and now this account becomes yours, you want to change your passwords so that it's, safe and it's in just your name. And then direct deposit, which I sort of already went over, but making sure that you move your direct deposit into your own account if the separation of accounts has happened. But these are just some, tips and some things that we see people kind of forget about through the process of divorce. And I think it's nice to have it laid out, and you can kind of, make that list and sort of check off those boxes as that goes, as you go through that.
So after you've kind of done all that, laid everything out, dividing and managing debt, I think is the biggest portion of this that can be time consuming. It can be stressful. But I think one way to, if you are able to, is to try and work together as much as you can to achieve the best result. There are many times I work with members, my department works with members, that we are talking to each borrower on an account and we can't get them on the same page. So it can be difficult for us too. We're just trying to find the best solution. So when you are able to, and sometimes you're not able to, work together to start, lay everything out, I think is your best bet to start with. But again, we know that sometimes that can't happen. So dealing with the joint debt, looking up here, we have credit cards, your auto, your personal loans, real estate loans, taking a look and just going through, what do you have together? So as Nicole said, like pen and paper, or sitting with your financial institution, looking at your credit, what do you have, I think is the best route to go first. And then what are your next steps? What can you do? So one way that we have seen members, and this sometimes is a last resort, but if you have a lot of unsecured debt, so you have a lot of like a personal loan and some credit cards jointly, one way to kind of clean that up is to file bankruptcy. So you would file and you could start fresh. Now, bankruptcy is like, that's a big word, scary word. Many members are like, whoa, I don't want to file bankruptcy. But sometimes that's the only and the best solution, really, to just start fresh. Many times we see members can't afford that debt on their own, or they can't qualify it in just their name. And so really one of the ways to get rid of that is to file bankruptcy, and you'll recover from that. At Town and Country, we really work to help members. They've gone through a difficult time, and bad things happen to good people. So we understand that, and we're going to have a conversation with you. If you file bankruptcy and you want to get a car loan in a couple years, we're going to have that conversation and ask questions. I mean, the number one, two top things I see when people are filing bankruptcy is divorce and a health issue with medical bills. They just can't keep up. So it's okay if that is what has to happen to be able to separate that and start fresh. So just keeping that in mind, you could speak to your attorney, a financial advisor, a bankruptcy attorney, just to see if maybe that's an option for you to divide and manage that, separate that debt. Another important thing I think to know is the divorce decree is a big thing we see a lot with members, that they'll get this and they'll say, okay, one person's responsible for the auto loan, one person's responsible for the mortgage loan. So just knowing that that does not mean that you are not obligated to pay the debt. At a financial institution, that divorce decree basically doesn't mean anything to us because you signed for, like, let's use a car loan, you signed that application, you signed for that note, so you are legally responsible for that. So many times we have members, we're calling them because they're past due and like, no, my ex is that's their loan. I'm not on it, but they are still on it. So we'd have to say you are still legally responsible for them. It's their responsibility to then apply for the loan and put it in their name. So just know if you do have that and you are the one that is going to be keeping the car or the home, making sure you are refinancing that and putting it in your own name. Or if the flip side, if you're the person that is not keeping the car and the other person's supposed to be putting that in their name, following up to make sure, because we see many times that it's not happening because that person maybe can't qualify or they can't afford it. So just making sure you're staying on top of that financial institution, we kind of just don't look at those because we need to actually sign that person off a loan. But you really also may need to make some tough decisions. So if there are a joint home, a joint auto loan, is it best to sell the vehicle and kind of both just walk away and start fresh? Is it best to, with the home, refinance, maybe buy that person out? So the home, I think, is a big one and can be difficult depending on kind of the environment that we're in, but weigh the options. So one partner, should they be staying in the home and they're going to buy you out? I've seen some situations that one person stays in the home and they refinance it in their name and the other person just walks away. Or sell the house. Is there equity in the home? Is that going to put you both in a better situation to kind of make some money and maybe put a down payment on something new? Or can you realistically afford it on one income? So a budget, I think, is a big piece. Me and Nicole talked to many different people about this. Again, sitting down, what do you have? Can you afford this mortgage by yourself? Or can you afford this auto loan on just one income? I think is an important piece when you are looking to divide and manage all that debt up. I don't know if I missed anything on the house piece.
Yeah, I was just going to add, you did great, but I was just going to add is, right now the home piece of it is really challenging because, that's our greatest investment. And the biggest challenge that I'm seeing right now is if you bought the home, say 5 or 10 years ago, you've probably got a lot of equity in that home and your rate's probably low. And so now people are sort of having to decide, do I want to sell the home and do I want to get the proceeds of all of that equity that I've been paying on for, X amount of years and then try to find a new home? The challenge is it's hard to find a new home right now in the environment that we're in with the rates are a little bit higher. They're not substantial, but they're definitely higher than most rates that we're seeing if you were able to refinance or purchase in 2020 to 2023. And so the higher rate with the higher loan purchase amount can make it a little challenging. So we are seeing in divorce situations that one person is buying out the other. And they're not necessarily buying the other out for the amount of equity that they have in the home. They're kind of negotiating that so that one person can stay in the home and maintain that household, especially if there's children involved, and kind of working through that, because it can be hard and daunting to try to go out and buy a home that, you know, in some cases could be double the price you're paying and also double the rate. So is it challenging? Yes. Are there ways to get creative with that? There sure are. We have done, you know, home equity loans for people that need to buy somebody out rather than refinancing their first mortgage at a higher rate. We're leaving that as is and then doing a second loan, you know, with a little bit of a higher rate, but it's just that debt that they're paying on the higher rate. So we are getting creative. We are working with people every day that are going through, you know, divorce situations and trying to figure out, can I afford the house by myself? What do I need in order to qualify for that? And getting creative in those situations, because it is a little bit challenging in the market right now, but it is possible. And I think, you know, more on that, it's just staying in contact with your creditors is really important through a situation where you're getting maybe divorced or, you know, all kinds of different things in life that happen. It's important to, you know, stay in touch with the creditors, have them help you. You know, that's what we're here for. This is what we do every day. I've had people come in my office and just laid out a bunch of papers and said, please help me. I don't know what I should do, how I should, you know, restructure this debt to make this work. And that's kind of our specialty. So I think that's my big piece is, you know, to stay in touch with creditors, especially when you're talking about like protecting your credit. Because there might be a time where you can't make all of your monthly payments and people are willing to work with you and with others, and making sure you just kind of have that relationship is good when you're going through a divorce or any situation, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And we work with members in my department all the time of we're lowering payments because maybe you have divided that debt, but now you're realizing I can't do this. This payment's too high. So do you have equity in a vehicle? Can we lower a payment on a personal loan? Can we combine some things and refinance? So there's a lot of options out there that maybe you don't know. So just talking with your financial institution, or even Nicole and I will have our information at the end of these slides, but reaching out to us and we can answer questions that you may have. If you have, maybe you've divided it, you've managed it, but now you're like, I can't afford this. So just really, like she said, making sure you talk to your creditors is important for sure. So, and talking about credit score. So maintaining your credit score, being proactive to protect it is big. So this is a big life change that you've gone through or you're about to go through. So trying to protect your credit is important. So not only just to check it to see if there's things on there that there shouldn't be, but monitoring your credit activity. Were there lates on there that maybe before your divorce, again, you didn't know, and kind of watching that score increase? Or are there late marks that are happening that you're still joined on a debt that you totally forgot to refinance, and paying attention to that? Monitoring out, we have something called Savvy Money at Town and Country. So if you are a member of Town and Country, right on your app, right on our website, you can check your credit score every day, every hour if you want. And you can also look at your credit and just watch that. I think is important. Keeping your payments current, if you're able to, is also important. So calling your creditors, like we just said, discuss your options that you have. If you have fallen past due, we are here to help you to try and get those numbers back up on your credit. So then, and maybe in a couple of years, then you are buying a home by yourself after you've kind of gotten through this part. So paying attention to your credit score is important. Maybe the last thing on your mind when you're first going through this, but trying to make sure you are paying attention is good to do. And then we're going to go into some budgeting stuff.
Yeah. So along with, you know, your credit and figuring out, you know, where is the debt going to go? Am I going to take it on? Is also making sure that you build a new budget, because you're most likely going to go from a 2-income household to a 1. And so things, will be different. And you might go from, having a household to having, an apartment or a new household or different bills, that will be either more or less. And so building a new budget will be important. I think, when you're doing that, we recommend using your net income, not your gross. So what you actually take home. And I think being conservative is always good. Using your low income and then high bills is kind of the way to, do it. And then anything left over, if there's anything left over, you would just have that to pay on additional bills or, put some in a savings. But the big thing is to prioritize, needs versus wants, which I tell everybody. It's like looking at statements and seeing what am I spending my money on. And I don't know about anybody on this call, but I'm always amazed at how often I'm going to Dunkin' Donuts. And it's like, do I really need that? No, it's really a want. So sometimes adjusting those habits is necessary. And I know I've had to do that over the years and with different things that have come up in my personal life. It's like, you know what? I can't really do a $4 coffee every day or whatever it may be. So really just prioritizing, my needs versus my wants. And it is super helpful because everything's such a digital world and electronic these days. It is super helpful to look at a bank statement, just pulling out like the last 2 months and kind of highlighting the things that were really, they were really wants, can be quite eye-opening for anyone. So I think that's a really important thing to start with. And along with that, you're kind of analyzing your spending habits, like where is my money going? And maybe having to monitor and adjust. And there could be added monthly expenses going through a divorce, especially if there's children involved. All those things could add some additional payments monthly. So we have a chart on here that kind of goes over, a target percentage of what each of these things, different items, budget items should look like with your net income. And so, we're thinking your mortgage or housing should be anywhere between 30 and 40% of your net income. And that is what we use when we do, pre-approvals is we're using that 30 to 40% on the mortgage side. We use your gross income. And so that's why I think using net is really important for a budget. So that way you're not overextending. 10 to 15% for transportation. So that would be if you had an auto loan or, something of that sort. And then other living expenses, 35 to 45%. Those include groceries, maybe medical bills or your kids' sports, because those are really expensive. So it's like things like that, you factoring into your monthly budget. And then, of course, you can see the credit card and other loans shouldn't exceed more than 10% of your net income. And then savings and investments, no more than 15%. That could be lower while you're going through change. And that's what I usually tell members, every day. It's like, you got to adjust those things. Sometimes you might be able to do 15%. And then other times you might be able to do 5%. And that's okay. Adjusting your budget is something that everybody should, be able to do and look at and know that, okay, this month is going to be a little rough. So I'm not going to be able to do as much. But don't stop. I think sometimes the savings gets put, on the back burner for obvious reasons. But even if you put, that even if I put that $4 a week coffee that I spend into a savings account, well, I've got more money than I would have. So every little bit kind of counts. And just knowing that this is kind of like a working sort of budget and that you are going to have to adjust it, and everybody should. So I think it's a good starting point to when you are having to adjust just all of your new bills and your new income and going from one, 2-family income to a 1. I think it's a good starting point.
And I think leaning on your financial institution too for this, the budgeting piece can be overwhelming. Like you can write it on paper, like Nicole said, go through your statements, but also leaning on your financial institution, or you can reach out to us and just help you even just start, because sometimes even just starting and looking at the statement can be overwhelming. But then once you do it, and then Nicole said adjust when you can, or when something else happens that maybe you got a raise, and then you can adjust that a little bit. I think is important to lean on your resources that you have while you are going through a life-changing situation.
And I'm going to show in a couple of slides, we have a really great, actually, I can show it now.
Yeah, I can
we have a great resource on our website that's totally free. And it's called Bonsai. And I'm going to show everybody on the screen how to get to that. Our website is tcfcu.com, which is right here. And this is our homepage. So when you get to the homepage, you can click this little menu item here. And we have a whole financial wellness section. And this is great, not only for this particular financial wellness called Bonsai that I'm going to show you, but it also has a budget worksheet on there, which I find really helpful. It's totally free too. You can grab this anytime you want, and it's electronic. So when you click on it, it'll bring up and you can put in your monthly income and then any payments or monthly expenses that you have. And it will tell you if you're in the red or if you're in the green, and then you can adjust it however you need to. And I think that's really nice to have because it's a working sort of budget sheet. You can change it. You can do it anytime you want. So I think that's something I just wanted to point out. We do have that on there if you wanted to check that out and get started on your own, just to kind of see. And then of course you can reach out to us. We're definitely willing to help with any budgeting sort of things. So that's there. But the Bonsai Financial Wellness is this tab. And when you click on it, it'll bring you here, which just kind of goes over what it is. You can do a financial health checkup. It'll ask you questions about your finances and it'll tell you whether you're healthy or not. So I kind of like that. That's neat. And then here you can, search different topics. So you could put in, I think, put in divorce and it will tell you
articles, it bring up, lessons you can do, but a lot of great resources in this.
So
about really anything, budget or financial wellness, but this divorce, there's different topics on here. So if people had questions about how to split up retirement, or different, how much to do the split housing, there's just different articles on here. So it could be a good resource.
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring that up. You can type in any topic to separating money or budget, and it will bring up the articles and you can kind of read. And there's some interactive things on there as well. So just wanted to mention that because it's on our website. It's free. So just another resource.
So resource we had here, and Nicole just mentioned our website, and then we have some other things if you wanted to check your credit report, as we had stated before. If you're a member of Town & Country, Savvy Money, your financial institution may have a resource as well. Annualcreditreport.com is a great resource. And a personal financial planner, an accountant, if there's more questions about things maybe we didn't touch on, or questions about investments that's not our specialty, to reach out to them. We also have a resource for any questions regarding maybe an attorney. So we have her information up here, email, phone number, and you could reach out to her with any of those legal questions from Star Family Law. And then your preferred financial institution, I think we said that a lot, just really leaning on them as much as you can, or if you're a member at Town & Country, leaning on us as much as you need to, because we can be a great resource for sure. And then our information right here on the screen. So our emails, go to our website, give us a call. Again, happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. And then just a little plug here for Kids First as well. They offer amazing things for families that are going through divorce and classes. And we are putting on an event to keep that going so we can provide for as many families as possible next week at Aura. Be a live auction, silent auction, some music, and you can also go online and participate in the silent auction as well to donate to a great cause.